Well, in any conflict, the noise of gunfire and the plumes of smoke rising from stricken cities can mask another, less obvious atrocity, that of human trafficking.
Yeah, 4 million Ukrainians have now fled their country, according to the UN. And over the past month, as aid agencies and ordinary citizens have rushed to help them, reports have also emerged of vulnerable and unsuspecting women and children being targeted by gangs and falling victim to modern-day slavery. Well, one group fighting to stop the scourge is Sunflower Relief. It's a non-profit organisation founded by Ukrainian-born tech entrepreneur Irra Ariella Khi. She's already raised hundreds of thousands of pounds to tackle trafficking, and she joins us now. Irra, good evening to you.
Good evening, Nick. Hi.
Irra, just talk us through, for someone who's unfamiliar with the way that these traffickers operate. Tell us about their business model. How does it work?
Well, first of all, we need to realise that if we close our eyes and imagine what we think a human trafficker might look like, it's very far from the truth. They don't look like a one-eyed pirate or a saber-toothed tiger. They very much look like you and I, and they very often use not only men, but also women and even children in their operations. So when you think of their target, it isn't the fact that somebody is crossing the border, it's the fact that they're exhausted, not vigilant, and vulnerable. And so the problem really starts from the moment that you may have traveled as a refugee for many, many days and many hours, perhaps queued on the border for 60 hours, maybe even 100, in minus temperatures. And at the time that you come to a foreign country, you might have a false sense of security, that there are many volunteers trying to help. However, anyone can volunteer, anyone can offer help, and they very often prey on women with more than one child, especially if they have a younger child that they've got to hold in their arms. These people will prey on the older child and offer help to the woman who might think, you know, somebody's helping me with my older child while I take care of the baby. And that's really the biggest target demographic for them.
And Irra, those who fall victim to these traffickers, what is, or just what are some of the fates that can await them? What happens once they have been fooled? Where do they go then?
Well, this is part of the massive problem. By the time that they're victim to traffickers, it's extremely hard to tell. And there was a lot of conversation in the early days of the Ukraine crisis as to how we identify would-be traffickers. Perhaps it's identity documents, or perhaps it's even tracking devices or applications on the would-be victims' phones to allow them to alert somebody. But the truth is, if they're in that situation, it's simply too late. And they can end up absolutely anywhere in the world, and they will have no way of letting us know what's happened to them. So the work is really to capture their attention and their awareness, and to put boots on the ground to make sure it doesn't come to that.
Yeah, and that's part of the work that you do then with your organisation, is that you're simply trying to spread information to people who perhaps, you know, the language of the country they've just arrived in might not be their first language perhaps, and they are vulnerable simply of falling foul of misinformation and what that can lead to.
And to be honest, if you imagine when you're traveling, you often have, you know, your transfers booked, you know the name of the hotel you're staying in, you have a destination. These people are going into an abyss, into nothing often, and not only is it not their first language, they might understand nothing. They might as well be, for all they know, anywhere on the planet. And it's not just the vulnerability of not having the information, it's the state that you have to imagine when you're that exhausted, that stressed, that anxious, sleep deprived, with psychological torture of constant shell siren warning for about a month. And you're then expected to read instructions or stay vigilant when you finally reach what you consider to be safety. It simply isn't effective. There are many, many leaflets now on the borders, and a colleague of mine, Paul, went to the border in Medica. He even broadcast from there. There's a lot of information that is written and put up in posters in the local languages, but it just is really difficult for anyone under that psychological profile to absorb new information or to be vigilant all of a sudden or have to take on anything new. So we believe it's very low-tech answers, it's boots on the ground, it is awareness spread through digital channels, but the attention capture has to happen before people become victims. And interestingly, not only on the borders, before they cross the border, but also in Ukraine. You mentioned 4 million people have left. There is a new category of refugees in country, 6 million people who truly have lost everything and have been displaced but can't exit. They're vulnerable too.
OK, we'll leave it there. Thank you indeed for your time tonight, Irra. That's Irra Ariella Khi there of the Sunflower Relief Project.
Thanks, Nick.